Welcome to Free Media TV. I'm Robby Soave, and I'm joined by Amber Duke. Now, we'll be breaking down all the biggest moments you might have missed on cable news this week and work to hold the media to account. Amber, let's get right to it. What do you think?
Thanks, Robby. So mainstream media has gone absolutely mental after President Trump, during a rally in Ohio over the weekend, said that the auto industry and country at large would be facing a, quote, bloodbath if Biden is reelected. Let's go ahead and take a look at his full comments.
Mexico has taken, over a period of 30 years, 34% of the automobile manufacturing business in our country. Think of it, went to Mexico. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. No, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
And our friends over at Cable News predictably lost their minds over this. Here's MSNBC's Joe Scarborough reacting yesterday.
He's talking about a bloodbath for America. It's laid out in the terms of it. And these idiots on Twitter, these idiots on cable news, these idiots on Sunday shows going, well, presidents, he was talking only about the auto industry, and this is one more. It's just bullshit. Let me say that at 6:15 a.m. It's just bullshit. He knew what he was doing. We're not stupid. Americans aren't stupid. He was talking about a bloodbath. Sometimes a bloodbath means a bloodbath. And when he finishes by saying, and that's just going to be the least of it, seriously, these people may be stupid. We're not.
I'm trembling. Now, Gravian's Tom Elliott has some receipts. It seems Trump isn't the only one, maybe, who's predicted a bloodbath over the years. Let's watch.
But as Politico.com reports tonight on the, quote, bloodbath at the RNC,
headlines calling it a, quote, bloodbath.
Be a bloodbath. Not only is it going to be a bloodbath, but after they leave New Hampshire, it's a bloodbath on her home turf. That's really tough.
Trump has left a lot of corpses in his wake. I mean, we can count the bodies
as part of the, quote, MAGA drive to take over Maricopa County. And the headline refers to it as an impending bloodbath.
Columnist Charles Blow has a new piece for the New York Times entitled A Biden Bloodbath.
2018 midterms, you can bet that they 100% are fearing a slaughter. In fact, the word bloodbath and massacre come up frequently.
So it sounds to me like bloodbath has been used in a different context before in the media, and we seem to have forgotten that.
I love the corpse reference as well, too. That's really just the cherry on top
Slaughter,
of this.
Violence.
Dead bodies everywhere. Yeah. It's incredible. Joe Scarborough dropping the BS at 6 a.m. in the morning. He is such a hardo. I mean, I can't believe that he would do something like that.
And it wasn't just cable news pundits. So we're reacting to this because people went apoplectic at the bloodbath line. It was widely repeated all over social media that this was Trump promising political violence. And look, I get that Trump says a lot of crazy things over the years, a lot of things I personally object to, but it was very clear if you watch the full clip that he was talking in the same sense the media talks about the word, as this would be a bad thing for the auto industry, the economy, the country, etc. And yet, not only just cable news people, but Joe Biden as well ran with this. I don't know if you saw, he played an ad from his feed on social media opening with the bloodbath line and associating it with all the other controversial things Trump has said over the years.
Right, so they included the Very Fine People hoax, which I would just remind everyone was about the people protesting the removal of the Robert E. Lee statue, which in retrospect looks like it was indeed the slippery slope that everyone warned it was going to be. And I think they also included some comments from January 6th, the Stand Back and stand by. They didn't include the tweet telling everyone to go home peacefully, though. That was obviously left out of the Biden ad. But another element of this that the media sort of brought in to prove that he was actually talking about slaughtering people as opposed to there being political consequences of elections is the fact that in a different part of this rally speech, Trump was talking about MS-13, which is, of course, the violent El Salvador gang whose motto is like kill, rape, control, you know, like 3 of the worst things that you can do to people. And he referred to them as animals and questioned their humanity, essentially.
Well, maybe they just mean it in the metaphoric sense as well.
Right. Yeah, metaphorically rape.
Yeah.
And so Washington Post's Aaron Blake and people for the New York Times were like, oh, well, see, this is just proof that the context was actually about dehumanizing people and using violent rhetoric. It had nothing to do with the auto industry.
I do think Trump has said some very questionable and, in fact, dehumanizing things over the years. But the media, I don't think that people believe the criticism anymore because they know and they see things like this from the media where they're saying common language people use, metaphoric, colorful language means Trump is planning like mass slaughter of the population on day one. And I think there's a lack of belief because you can clearly see them using that same language so many other times and running with this. To me, this feels a little bit like the Hillary Clinton gaffe on Joe Biden's part to actually demonstrate, to say that a bloodbath means that, reminds me of Hillary Clinton saying basket of deplorables, which, so I think Trump's surrogates should remind people that sometimes you can't take people in the media seriously when they're saying these things. People have to make up their own mind about what they think.
I want to think that's true, but only to a certain extent, because there are people out there who will read these headlines and they won't seek out the full clip. And we know that's the case because back in 2020, like how many suburban women did the media talk to who said that they weren't voting for Trump because they kind of liked his policies, but they just couldn't get over the rhetoric. And it's like, okay, well, how many of the cases are they thinking in terms of the rhetoric are cases where the media did exactly this, where they intentionally took comments out of context to try to paint him as worse than he actually was? Like, you have to think at some level, how many people, if they actually heard the full sentences surrounding everything Trump said, would actually reach the conclusion that his language was so unpalatable that they couldn't vote for him?
Yeah. I mean, I think you brought the use of the very fine people thing. I think that wasn't a good line. I think that gave the impression, look, I mean, if you're a political figure, it's on you to use precise language, right? So your job is to be an effective communicator. And sometimes if you're taken out of context, well, you should not have set yourself up for that, right? I think it plausibly sounded to people like he was saying that, the tiki torch marching alt-right type people were very fine people. I understand if you fully read the full context, he's saying, well, of course, some people who just don't think statues should be taken down for historical reasons is a perfectly legitimate view to have and does not mean you're a white nationalist if you think that. And maybe it got cut in a sort of unfair way to him, but I don't know if that's as clear-cut as this case where it's just literally a metaphor that the media itself has used time and time again.
Yeah, that's true. I do think the very fine people case was not as cut and dry, not as black and white as this situation. I would just point out that in that case, he had literally condemned neo-Nazis, and then they used the very fine people line to say that he didn't condemn neo-Nazis, and so it was like, all right, come on, guys.
And on the stand back and stand by? Stand down would have been better than stand by. Can we agree on that?
I agree, down would have been better. I also want to get a little bit into the political implications of this, because to me this seems like the larger trend of the media and the Biden campaign trying to paint Trump as a threat to democracy, right? Like that's been a huge part of what Biden's been trying to do heading into November. And so I think just the fact that he used the term bloodbath, even if it was as a euphemism, was kind of convenient for them to say, see, look, he's doing what we warned he was going to do.
Indeed. All right, we'll be back with more Free Media TV right after this.